Okay, and we're live.
Okay, we're live. We're gonna hope that the audio is working.
Can check that.
Um, for the record as well. I didn't know how microphones worked, but that got cut out already.
Sorry.
So that's left for the imagination. Um, I guess how have you been, Chris?
Been all right. I saw an interesting video today on making a SaaS factory. And so we had some conversations today about making SaaS as a kind of productized process. And a big part of SaaS, maybe the biggest part of SaaS is probably the pricing. That's when you were saying there was a paper about it that you wanted to go over. So that's kind of
Yeah,
how we got here.
I so I came across this paper whilst going down a YouTube rabbit hole. And as I understand it, it was one that sort of went through the economics of, we'll find out, but the economics of like not directly SaaS products. It was on bundling or not bundling research papers in journals.
Mm,
Um, but I think that economics papers, especially in AI and everything, are important because a lot of AI systems are trained in sort of market strategy ways where systems with worse strategies end up going bankrupt and ones that don't and are successful end up being successful. Um, and so this is an interesting paper on all of that.
yeah, let's get into it.
This is the first time I've done an economics paper, and I have not done economics for a long time. So we'll try to make sense of the formulas and everything with the help of Claude. And hopefully over time they'll make more sense.
Let's do it. So
Okay.
this was from 2004, so it's 20 years now.
Yes, 2004, long time ago,
Zero,
long, long time
that's,
ago.
yeah.
Um, the time around this as well, like software piracy was a big problem. And so the economics of what to charge for ongoing software licenses, that then you could spend on like ongoing software development. It was a really big question at the time. Um, yes, so paper, information goods, and indigenous pricing strategies. A case of academic journals. Um, Abstract. I model journal pricing behavior in a portfolio demand environment and consider how the ongoing transition from print to digital distribution has led to endogenous changes in pricing behavior. Specifically, when choosing whether or not to price discriminate, publishers compare the benefits of selling more content to each set of buyers against the associated additional costs. As the distribution costs decline, price discrimination becomes more attractive. However, since this cost decline also creates new entry opportunities, incumbent firms may also need to bundle their journals to avoid displacement of individual titles. Uh, yeah. So
It's interesting to read this from 20 years ago, knowing how much is just freely available now.
yes. This also, I guess, with the whole open access movement and everything,
Mhm.
as well, a lot of this stuff, like back in 2008, um, sorry, 2004, you didn't really have open research papers, so everything cost money. Um,
I think
and
I think a lot of it was though it was open within institutions like universities. So if you paid your tuition and you had your academic access, then you probably had pretty open access to see it. But now it's just almost anyone can get a lot of these papers.
yeah, the universities but still would have been paying,
But that's the thing, the universities use your tuition money to then pay the journals.
yeah. Also, I guess to note in today's model of everything being on archive and everything and anyone can create account, I read like so many times I've come across research papers, and even today, coming across old research papers that aren't on archive and needing to try to figure
Chase
out where
away,
they
yeah.
come from. Um, is really difficult. And it is that freedom of information thing, which I think has benefited AI especially, and machine learning and all tech quite well. So yeah. So uh, I have not done economics in a very long time, but price discrimination and like uh basis costs and everything, distribution costs and everything. We'll try to figure it out. Yeah. Introduction. The principal buyers of academic journals, research libraries, attempt to assemble broadly defined journal collections. Although this portfolio approach to journal acquisition allows a community of scholars to share copies and reduce transaction costs, it also suggests that demand substitution between journals is constrained. For example, rather than choosing a handful of the available economics journals, most research libraries try to purchase dozens and sometimes hundreds of these titles, since from a user's perspective, articles on one title are, at best, very imperfect substitutes for those appearing in other journals. The purpose of this note is to model journal pricing behavior in this demand environment and to consider how the ongoing transition from print to digital distribution has led to endogenous changes in pricing behavior, specifically when choosing whether or not to price discriminate, publishers compare the benefits of selling more content to each set of buyers against the associated additional costs. As the distribution costs decline, price discrimination becomes more attractive. However, since this cost decline also creates new entry opportunities, incumbent firms may also need to bundle their journals to avoid displacement on individual titles. In recent years, this shift in strategy has been implemented by major commercial journal publishers. The scholarly journal market has received modest attention in the economics literature. Ordover and Willing, 1978, Phillips and Phillips, 2002, was Isman, White, and Shai, 2003, modeled the pricing of a single print journal to institutional and individual subscribers. Bergstrom discusses how the demand aggregation facilitated by libraries increases the profitability of an individual title and reduces user surplus. Let's just what Bergstrom discusses how the demand aggregation facilitated by libraries increases the profitability of an individual title and reduces user surplus. I just want to get it straight that we've got titles, individual titles, which mean like the individual research papers,
I
and then
think
the
no, I think
academic journals.
when they say title, I think that's the title of a journal.
Uh, 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 wait,
Go back to where we were.
I think
Yeah.
that here we bundle their journals.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, to avoid displacement of individual titles.
Yeah.
Um,
So when they say journals, it's whole journals, and the whole preprint access to papers that we have now wasn't really a thing.
that makes sense.
So you could only get them as part of, and I guess a title, yeah, a title would be a whole journal, not just an issue,
Yeah.
but they're sold issue by issue.
So, when say demand aggregation facilitated by libraries increase the profitability of an individual title and reduces user surplus. This is talking about how when when we demand aggregation
So that's
by
the
libraries increase
yeah.
by libraries. So when we're batching the amount of titles together, we increase the profitability because you're lowering the cost per thing.
Yeah, so what I'm reading there is demand aggregation means that the demand for journals by researchers is aggregated, facilitated, combined by libraries. And when you're billing a library instead of an individual, then they can afford to pay more. So that's what increases the profitability because now it's a library budget instead of an individual researcher's budget.
Yeah.
And there's also, it reduces user surplus, so it reduces the the um the papers that aren't relevant because they get granted access to the whole library instead
Yeah.
of just the individual.
I'm gonna.
Do it.
Okay. Uh, right. Gotcha. What you're saying, libraries are the demand aggregate because then you subscribe to the library instead of the single thing.
Yeah,
By aggregating demand, libraries can purchase books that might not have been profitable if sold only to individual consumers. This allows publishers to profit from the titles that might otherwise be unprofitable. Reduce user surplus. User surplus is the difference between what consumers are willing to pay for a good and what they actually pay. That makes sense. Yes, this makes sense. So a user might not actually be willing to pay the amount that it would cost for the individual title, but because it's batched with a whole bunch of others and the library's paying for it, then they also have access to it. Shuang and Sherbu also consider the case of a single journal, but in a digital environment. Given the lower transaction cost associated with this new environment, they demonstrate that mixed bundling, sales of individual articles, as well as the bundled journal, can be a profit maximizing strategy. Fay and Mackie Mason extend to this demand framework to allow for competition between bundles of information. Bundles of information goods. They compare the profitability and welfare properties of bundling in the monopoly and duopoly cases. In both of these papers, the analytical difficulties posed by the N-good bundling problem led to simplifying assumptions, e.g., firms sell either one bundle containing all N goods and or each of the individual goods. There is no price discrimination. A bundle components share a common price if sold separately, and the use of numerical methods is necessary to generate results. The two papers that are closest in spirit to the approach adopted here are Maccabi 2003 and Giannominucci 2003. Like this paper, McCabe examines the impact of a decline in distribution costs on publishers' pricing strategies. However, since library preferences are assumed to be lexicographic, no unique equilibria can be identified. Leon and Minicucci JM focus on the digital environment and assume that libraries allocate their budgets across both journals and monographs. I don't know what journals and monographs are. Okay, gotcha. Journals are
yeah.
periodic publications and monographs are on a
Books.
specific topic.
They're books about something.
Yeah. This latter assumption generates unique equilibria. However, when JM compared the profitability of unbundled and bundled journal sales, the underlying equilibria are based on a different decision criteria. When journals are sold separately, JM assume that libraries compare to the surplus plus price ratio of each journal, i.e., they purchase those titles with the highest use value per dollar. In contrast, when each publisher sells a single journal bundle, JM assume that libraries compare the net surplus associated with each bundle, i.e., use value minus the bundle price. This later assumption is inconsistent with the library science literature and my own discussions with librarians. It implies that libraries are willing to pay more per unit of use for a journal bundle whose overall value is relatively large. In contrast, this paper relies exclusively on the use value per dollar approach for modeling the behavior of libraries. Given this demand framework, I compare the profitability of two distribution regimes observed in the market. One, no price discrimination, the print regime, and two, price discrimination, the digital regime, and show how a decline in distribution costs results in a market shift from the print to the digital regime. In my model, bundling is important only as an entry foreclosure device. When marginal costs are low, entry by new, lower quality titles may be profitable. Bundling by incumbent firms can foreclose entry in these circumstances. For example, if entry would displace an incumbent's title, then bundling can be effective defense if the publisher's journal portfolio is sufficiently valuable. So this is essentially saying that if you have a smaller title can come along, but if a smaller title can come along, um,
Yeah.
with a lower quality title, but then it could still be profitable. And bundling by incumbent firms can sort of close that gap.
When I say foreclose entry, that to me means like block,
Yeah.
prevent the entry of a new lower quality title.
Okay, gotcha.
By bundling the incumbents that have lots of different journals can make it harder for new entries.
Right. Um, and so this is what so bundling is a strategy after like the transition to digital essentially.
Yeah, and they mentioned they're going to talk about digital versus print.
Yeah. I think this is quite interesting because it brings up a lot of trends in like all SaaS things from B2B
Sure.
SaaS to like Google Cloud offering a whole bunch of different things in the same platform
Yeah,
to Netflix offering like subscription services for a whole bunch of like content. Um
yeah.
yeah.
So it's about that's exactly it. So it's about I wonder how directly usage-based stuff, like a cloud provider that has a whole bunch of services is relevant, but I think it's definitely the case for Netflix. And we see like nobody's made their own streaming service just for a show for $2.99 a month. But if you have
Yes.
10 shows, then or hundreds
But
of shows, then it's $20 a month.
but to this point, like when Netflix had a huge lead on everything and they had all the titles because they were new, companies like Disney ended up going and then doing bundling for their Disney Plus, and then they were able
Yeah.
to
Well, I
sort
think
of use
I
this.
think even related to this, when Netflix started, they had exclusive access to some shows that they lost
Yeah.
exclusive access to. So it's like the competitors knew the value of the bundles and then blocked it because they already own the rights to the content.
Yes. Um, yeah. But it's also when especially talking about marginal costs and everything, it's almost like Netflix ended up having a huge lead because the marginal costs of starting a streaming service were so high compared to everything else. And then over
But
time,
when they say marginal cost, that's the cost to sell one more at the
um,
limit. So like the marginal cost of selling a book is the cost of printing the book.
yes, but
But the marginal cost of selling a digital paper is just kind of keeping the lights on in the server
once you've already got the streaming service. But if you
Yeah.
have, if you're Disney and you haven't made Disney Plus yet, the marginal cost of streaming a new thing is the marginal cost of streaming the first.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that's not what marginal cost is.
Yes. Okay.
Marginal just means like one more at the limit.
Yes. I think I'm sort of marginal cost probably isn't the right way of describing it, but I think I'm more talking about the like
Startup costs.
yes, the startup cost initially is so large that that's why the bundlers to start with are able to get a head start. Continuing on. This note is organized as follows. I first provide the basic model setup and then use it to analyze each of the two distribution regimes. That I then compare the two regimes and identify the cost conditions under which each is observed. I conclude with a brief discussion of the results and their relationship to developments in the market for scientific journals. In the appendix, I construct a numerical example which further illuminates the results. Just some footnotes. Mixed bundling is not considered here for two reasons. Firstly, I assume that libraries' valuation for journals are positively correlated. The standard motivation for mixed bundling, negative correlation in consumer valuations, is absent. Second, the ability to price discriminate in the paper satisfies the same objective as the mixed bundling does in Trang and Sherbu 1999 and Fay and Mackey, Fay and Mackey Mason 1999. That is, in both of these papers, mixed bundling permits firms to set different prices for high and low demand buyers. Here, price discrimination allows publishers to set prices based on library budgets. Right. In JM's model, bundling may result in the foreclosure of incumbent titles as well. This difference arises in their assumptions that libraries compare the net surplus of various bundles in making acquisition decisions. So just to be clear, foreclosure means foreclosure of incumbent titles means what does that mean?
I thought that meant like shutting down a paper or shutting down.
Oh, gotcha.
Shutting down a whole journal. But it might just mean exclusion from purchase.
Yes.
Which is different.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's. Okay, so to go through this, we've got libraries' valuations for journals are positively correlated, as in the more journals they have, so mixed bundling would be having a basis for mixed bundling would be having the
Where's the footnote 2?
in this.
Yeah. So no, that's the line after that. So price discrimination in the digital regime and show how a decline in distribution costs results in a market shift from the print to the digital regime. And go to the okay, so and scroll down to the footnote. Because I assume libraries' valuations for judgments are positively correlated. The standard motivation for mixed bundling, negative correlation in consumer values is absent for consumer valuations. Second, the ability to price discriminate in this paper satisfies the same objective as mixed bundling does in these papers. That is, in both papers, mixed bundling permits firms to set different prices for high and low demand buyers. Yeah, so when they say give it to Claude about the negative correlation. Mixed bundling. Yeah.
Oh, gotcha. Right. Positively correlated, as in one journal being highly valued as another
Oh,
one
I
being
guess,
highly.
okay, yeah. So the thing that was throwing me off was the negative correlation. So I guess it just means that in negative correlation, some customers value item A of the bundle really highly and don't care about item
Yeah.
B, and others value item B highly and don't care about item A.
Yeah.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that they want item A and they explicitly don't want item B. They just
Yeah.
don't want to pay for it.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Moving on,
So math.
continuing to the model. I consider two journal distribution regimes: no price discrimination, the print regime, and two perfect price discrimination, the digital regime. In why is print no price discrimination, and can you explain this? Right. Okay, this makes sense. Price discrimination of print, because you just buy the journal. Um Print journals are always going to be the same cost, but perfect price discrimination would be every single customer would then pay the amount that they wanted to pay, or the distributor would want them to pay. Perfect price discrimination means the publisher can exactly determine how much each library is willing to pay and charge them accordingly. Um, in each case, given price and quality of information for some set of journals, I assume that libraries allocate their fixed budgets between journals and monographs. In the print regime, libraries maximize the following objective function. The sum of j equals 1 to n over
Why don't we explain what the variables are and then go back to the equation?
That makes so much sense. Subject to constraint.
Subject to the constraints where Uij is the monetary utility that library K isn't a variable here. The library K obtains from the journal I that is sold by the publisher J. Okay, so the first summation is over publishers. The second summation is over journals within the publishers. U is the monetary utility, and the or use the monetary utility that the library obtains from journal I that is sold by publisher K. Xij is a continuous variable in the interval of 0 to 1 that represents the fraction of the journal purchased by library Z. VM is the utility from spending M on monographs. So where was V again? Did they define V? No.
V is this one here.
Let's see.
So that's the monograms.
For V, I can't even see the notation. MZ is library. Z is total budget for journals. And P is the journal's price. I assume that those libraries prefer exhausting their budgets. I assume that M can take one of two values, small or large.
I'm gonna chuck this into Claude.
Sure.
Wait, and yes.
That I think that summation works.
It should be able to. Okay, maybe not. Library is trying to maximize its utility, which comes from two sources: the sum of utilities from purchasing journals, which is the out
Okay.
part, and the utility from
From
spending on
spending
monographs. The total spending on journals plus the monographs must not
Yeah.
exceed the library's budget, MZ. Variables or parameters. X of I is the fraction of journal IJ purchased. So
Hmm.
that is this one here.
Yeah. So
Um,
the plus
that's well,
is
because
not within the summation.
gotcha. It's the sum of that plus that.
Yeah.
Um, okay, so we've got this where UIJ is the monetary utility that library K obtains from journal I that is sold by publisher J. X
Hmm.
sub ij is a continuous variable of the interval 0, 1 that represents the fraction of journal ij purchased by library Z. Vm is the utility from spending on M on monographs. V of 0 equals 0. V n of M is greater than 0. This notation seems like it's stuffed up, but
Yeah.
anyway. I assume that's just saying, I don't know what that would be saying.
Utility for spending.
M is the library, Z's total budget for journals, and P is journal IJ's price. I assume that VNM is greater than 1 for all M. Thus, libraries prefer exhausting their budgets. So I guess this is the utility of the library
Yeah.
of M is greater than 1 for all M. So this is always positive. Therefore, you would want to exhaust your budget.
But we also see the V of 0 equals 0.
Yes.
Um, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and V of M is utility from
So
spending M
M
on
is an amount of
monographs.
dollars. V of M is the amount of the amount of utility from buying the books that are not journals.
Yeah. I assume that M sub Z can take one of two values, small Z equals S, or large Z equals L.
Yeah.
Where does Z come into this? Oh, right. That's just, where does M come into this? Oh, right. Subject to the
So
constraint.
M is the budget of a library.
Yes. And thus M large greater than M small. The number.
So yeah, okay. So that's subject to the constraint after equation one, if you go higher.
Yeah. Subject to the
So
constraint.
the objective function is the utility they get from buying journals, which is for each publisher, for each journal of that publisher, U of IJ is the utility from purchasing the journal. X of IJ is how much of the journal they bought,
Yeah.
plus the utility they got from books.
Yeah.
Subject to the constraint that understanding that, I would say the subject to the constraint is that they don't spend more money. The amount that they spend is less than the budget that they have. So the two
Yeah.
summations there will be for
This
publishers
is M.
and
M is less than M, which is the money that they spend on books,
spend on books
plus the summation over the journals and the
over the publishers and journals,
publishers and journals.
which would be the price of the journal times the amount of the journal they bought,
Yeah,
percentage of
that
the
makes
journal they bought.
sense. The number of libraries with budget budgets equal to MS and ML are NS and LNL respectively, with NS being greater than NL. In the digital case one, changes slightly since each firm sells a single bundle, the ith subscript in the is suppressed, and thus, for example, U sub J corresponds to the utility obtained from firm J's entire journal bundle.
That makes sense. So instead of two sums for each publisher, for each journal, you just do for each publisher, and that includes all journals.
Gotcha. Yeah. There exists a set of potentially active journals, only a subset of which are purchased in equilibrium. Only a subset of which are purchased in equilibrium. Let n denote the number of publishers with active titles, and n the number of active journals for firm J. The production cost of each title include a fixed cost F, the first copy cost, and constant distribution cost C per subscription. A journal is active if its owner decides to invest F. To simplify the presentation, I assume that journals' cost, demand, and quality are such that 4 titles are actually active in equilibrium, except are possible when marginal costs are close to 0. And that these 4 titles are divided among 2 publishers, i.e. n equals 2 and n sub j equals 2 in equilibrium. This duopoly market structure, as well as the 2-level library budget assumption, can be generalized to include additional budget levels, firms, and titles. So that is the
overall
model.
model.
I'm just going to simplify the presentation. I assume that the journal's cost and demand quality are such that 4 titles are actually active in equilibrium. And that these 4 titles are divided among 2 publishers. Okay. This duopoly market structure was, as well as a 2-level library budget assumption, can be generalized to include additional budget levels, firms, and titles. So this is the assumption for, just to simplify everything.
For the whole model, yeah. They're
Yeah.
just assuming there are 2 publishers, and each publisher has 2. It's like for the 4 eaches.
So the journals have more than one. Each journal has more than one publisher.
No, there's 2 publishers. Each publisher has 2 journals.
Gotcha. Yes, this makes sense. Yeah, that makes so much more sense. The print regime, no price discrimination. The game played by market participants consists of 4 periods. In the first period, publishers decide for each of their titles whether to expend F, the first copy cost. In the second period, publishers with active titles make a pair of simultaneous decisions for each of these titles, whether to sell title I to all libraries or just those with large budgets. And 2, journal I's subscription price. Libraries then make their purchase decisions, and finally firms publish their journals. Since sales can be forecast perfectly at the end of the second period, I focus on the first 2 periods of the game. JN's proposition 1 describes a unique SPNE for a similar game involving unbundled journals. In their setup, publishers first decide whether to enter or not, and then determine price for their respective titles. Finally, libraries maximize one subject to their budget constraint.
What's an SPNE?
Subgame perfect Nash equilibrium.
Yeah, do you know game theory?
I have heard of game theory before.
So a Nash equilibrium, yeah, it's got right there. a situation where each player is making the best decision given what other players are doing. No player can change their action to improve their outcome by themselves. So it might not be an optimal situation overall, but it's just a position where everybody's making the move such that any other move would make them worse off.
Um, gotcha. It's a bit if we're adding the like if we're talking about game theory and everything, what happens when we're talking about like imperfect information? Like with the prisoner's dilemma, you don't know if you're going to snitch on the other person, or
Yeah,
you don't know that the other person's going to snitch on you. So
there's yeah, so that's not a natural equilibrium anymore. So
okay,
they're assuming that perfect information.
okay, that doesn't matter then.
Yeah.
Um, let U be equal to the sum of from J to N of UJ, which is what was that again? That was
What was which one?
the utility obtained from firm J's entire journal bundle was this. So this is the utility of the entire firm's journal bundle. Under the assumption of zero fixed and marginal costs, JM show in their prop one that unique NE, Nash equilibrium, exists in prices in the second period of their model. P star sub ij equals alpha star uj, where alpha star is the unique solution to 1 on alpha equals v prime multiplied by m minus alpha u. Note that the general form of 2 reflects the familiar Kahn-Tucker solution to the maximization problem described in 1. I did not note that.
That's what happens when you're reading economics paper with a computer science background.
And with the exactly
Yeah.
right.
The result is quite intuitive.
Yeah,
Yeah, but
obviously.
it's a linear it's a relatively simple linear algebra.
Yeah. This result is quite intuitive. Journal prices are linearly related to the underlying use value of or utility. And the ratio of a journal's use value to price is determined by the marginal utility of the last dollar spent on monographs. In other words, libraries compare the cost of each unit of journal use value and spend their budget on the cheapest units available. This result constitutes an equilibrium because on one hand, cutting a journal's price does not increase sales. Only one copy of each journal is purchased. And on the other hand, increasing its price results in more spending on monographs and less on the deviating title.
That's kind of interesting.
Say that,
won't
yeah.
libraries won't purchase more than one copy of each journal. I guess most won't, but probably maybe the large ones might. And
Well,
it's also just out of scope for their model, right?
in other words, libraries compare the cost of each unit of journal use value and spend budget on the cheapest units available. The results constitute an equilibrium because, on one hand, cutting a journal's price does not increase sales, and on the other hand, increasing its price results in more spending on monographs and less on the deviating title. So, but this is because this is where is this because we're this is the print regime. Yeah, why is it just because in this model we only have two I don't see why reducing cutting the cost does not increase sales.
I think it's because of what they say there, is that libraries are only making one purchase of the whole block of a journal.
Right.
Because I don't think in this bundling setup, they have to buy the whole like,
But what
library of a
is
journal,
this? Is
right?
it just because the model that we're only oh right, because it's a journal, the libraries are purchasing it once and then they're
Yeah,
distributing it and everything, and that's the entire point of how
it's
it works.
yeah, it's like a magazine, right? You don't
Yeah.
subscribe to a
You don't buy 5 copies of the same magazine.
yeah.
Um, and I
And
assume,
I think it's a valid point. I think the bigger libraries will buy multiple copies of like Nature or Time Magazine along the same lines,
gotcha.
right? But I think it ends up being really expensive to do that
Yes.
when they can just make their users, waitlist for
Yeah.
copies.
However, since JM assumes that one, both fixed and marginal publishing costs are zero, and two, publishers engage in perfect price discrimination according to the size of a library's budget, the approach must be modified to model the transition from print to digital distribution, i.e., the choice to price discrimination or not. In particular, the zero cost assumption leads to the conclusion that all potentially active journals are indeed active and purchased. Furthermore, this assumption implies that multi-journal publisher will always prefer to sell its entire portfolio, bundled or not, to every customer and thus engage in price discrimination. Regarding this latter point, the intuition is that the publisher can maximize its share of a given customer's budget by offering as much content as possible. So, um, right. So essentially, this is essentially saying that fixed, because both fixed and marginal publishing costs are zero, and the publishers engage in perfect price discrimination. I okay, so this is for the digital domain, right?
I don't think scroll up. I don't think
Yeah, I
so.
know this is in the print regime, but we're talking
Yeah.
about perfect price discrimination.
Uh, yeah, but there's also a zero cost assumption.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So if you assume there's no fixed or marginal cost, they will always want to make every journal active and sell it to everybody at the highest price that
Yeah.
that given customer is willing to pay.
Yes. Okay. Right. Yeah, this makes sense. And this is what this paper assumed. Okay. Once this assumption is relaxed, if the average costs are high, then it is easy to show that the set of active journals is limited to those with utility values exceeding a threshold value determined by 2. That'd be this one here.
The solution to the equivalent
Yeah.
optimization.
To see this, recall that condition 2 determines price levels given VM, capital M and capital U. Given average costs, titles with low utility values will be unable to cover these costs. Thus, the level of U observed in equilibrium is necessarily less than or equal to the level observed when the costs are zero. Only the highest quality titles are published, and foreclosed titles, if they entered, would not be able to cover their costs, as JM equilibrium prices are determined by 2. This result is not sensitive to whether all titles are active or not. Second, engaging in price discrimination, i.e., selling each title to all libraries, lowers firms' profits for values of C greater than some C star where C star is determined by VM. MZ and the UI. This claim is examined more formally in section 4. The intuition is that although selling more titles to a given set of library increases the journal's share of the library's budget, it also increases the total distribution costs. When C is large enough, profits are greater when some titles are sold to all libraries and others to a subset of libraries, e.g., the large budget libraries. If this preferred outcome can be achieved, either because it is privately rational or through tacit collusion, then publishers need to consider a journal's target customer when determining its price. Should its price be set so that the small budget libraries choose to purchase it, and thus large libraries as well, or should a price be chosen so that only the large budget libraries can purchase it? Constructing a precise answer to this question, of course, depends on the model parameters. For example, given the duopoly market structure assumed here, two firms, two titles each, if C is greater than C star and U sub 11 equals U sub 22 equals U sub 12 equals U sub 22, then joint profit maximization for the duopoly requires that each firm sell one title to all libraries and one to just the large budget customers. So one title to all libraries and one to the large budget customers. Note that this diversified equilibrium corresponds to the observed practice in the pre-digital era. Okay, so you've got basically a premium title, and then you have a budget one. That's essentially what this is.
Mhm.
For the titles sold by firm,
It's interesting there that they have so they use variables there that are all equal. Is that the utility? Or is it the
this is the
Yes.
monetary utility that library K obtains from journal I. So this is saying that where were we? Back.
higher?
Wait, we were here, weren't we?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is saying that the utility from all of the libraries.
Utility from all of the journals
Yes.
in a given library is the same.
Yeah.
It's interesting that they don't have to make assumptions about the number of large budget or small budget libraries beyond there's more like they do assume there's more small than large,
Yeah.
but they don't make any assumptions that are stricter than that.
Well,
But they still conclude that you get the
because I assume that you get that from the utility.
but the utility depends on the library anyways. Because that utility variable comes from the utility optimization function of a given library. So it's like total utility of K. I don't think they assigned a name to it, but it would be like F sub K for utility of K,
Mm-hmm.
where K is the library. So that all makes sense then.
Okay. For the title sold by firm J to all libraries, profits are this, where you're right.
It's a product, isn't it?
Yeah, product of IJ to all of equals P sub 1
Minus costs.
J minus
Or no.
cost multiplied by n number of small plus number of large minus f, which f is what's f?
Scroll down. I don't think we saw that.
Sorry,
I don't think we saw that. Oh, wait.
the first copy cost.
Ah.
Minus first copy cost. Right, because
Okay,
you need to
yeah.
spend this for everything, and this is yeah.
Right. So price minus cost minus marginal cost times number of libraries minus the. I'm
Yeah.
like multiply that together instead of summing it. That seems weird.
Right, yeah, because we're selling it to all libraries and we're not price discriminating on this, but we're price discriminating on right. And this is all libraries. Similarly for the title sold to only to the the library
So
title sold to
the
all
large
libraries.
only
That's I guess that's large
only large
libraries.
libraries, yeah.
Yeah. We've got just number of large minus the fixed, the first copy cost. Um, and P sub ij equals alpha star large multiplied by uij, which is the utility, and alpha star L is defined by 2 when M is equal to ML minus P1 1 minus P1 2 minus alpha LU, and U equals U sub U21 plus
What
U22.
what was capital U again?
This was the utility of
Was it the utility of all libraries?
it was utility of
What? In their setup, wait, scroll down. In their setup, publishers first decide whether to enter or not, and then determine the price. Finally, libraries recognize one subject, so they're constrained. Let U uh, sum of J to number of publishers, and UJ was the. That's still going to be U of K because the U little U is scoped to a library.
yeah.
Okay, well that's yeah. I guess it doesn't matter.
Oh, wait, but this is just so this is the utility of everything over
Yeah,
the journals. So this is
yeah.
their total utility over the journals, and
Or
we're
it's
just saying
utility
that
for
this
a
is
publisher.
um, but it's utility for the publisher. Wouldn't it be utility for the consumer, like the libraries?
Or the utility of a library of getting the bundle from a publisher.
Yeah. And this is just over like this
Yeah,
is journal 1 and journal 2. Um,
within publisher two.
yeah. Alternatively, to maximize joint profits, the firms might specialize, i.e., one firm sells its titles to all libraries and the other to all large budget libraries. However, it is easy to show for various model specifications that this strategy is dominated by the diversified sales approach, as in the numerical example described in the appendix. Um,
Do you want to go to the appendix and walk through?
wait, yes. Well, I'm sort of like just getting the overarching idea that this one here is like
Yeah,
freemium model, and then this is so like sells one
the low cost model
low
and
cost and then have a large one.
yeah.
Um, and then this one here, what are we saying? 5 Note that this is diversified equilibrium corresponds to the observed practice in the pre-digital era. In some cases, it might be privately rational for one firm to deviate from this equilibrium and engage in price discrimination. See footnote 8. Note that a necessary condition for existence of this equilibrium is alpha star L dollar sign. I don't know what that operator is. Alpha star S, i.e., large budget libraries pay weekly less for titles purchased by all libraries than required by two, because they're paying more, I guess.
Yeah.
If it were optimal for both firms to specialize in serving just large budget libraries when C is large, then it is possible that diversification would occur for mid-range values of C, below which price discrimination would dominate. If it were optimal for both firms to specialize in serving just large budget libraries when C is large. So that's the basis cost, the fixed cost. Or is that the
C was the
marginal cost?
marginal cost, F was the
So when the
fixed.
marginal cost is high, it's better for firms to specialize in just large budget libraries. Then it would be possible that diversification would occur for mid-range values of C, below which price discrimination would occur. So then you start doing like selling different. Okay, that makes sense. Notes that price discrimination always dominates specialization when the latter entails selling to all libraries at a uniform price.
Yeah.
Right. So so specialization being you've right. Yeah, this makes sense. So price discrimination selling different journals to different libraries is always going to win over specialization, because with specialization you're selling to everyone at the same price. If you're selling at it to everyone at the same price. For the digital regime case, price discrimination. If C is smaller than C star, so that is the marginal cost is smaller than the, I'm not sure what the C star was again.
That was the optimal price, wasn't it?
Yes.
So C is the price that is charged, and C star is the maximum price that the
Yeah,
libraries are willing to buy it at.
that makes sense.
And I think it's scoped to K. So C is the price that library K pays, and C star was the most K library K is willing to pay.
Okay. But isn't C the marginal cost?
Yes.
So C star is the
Oh, that's a good point. I think it was still the unit price that
marginal cost of producing an additional unit. C star is the threshold or critical value related to C. The exact meaning would differ on how break-even point where the revenue of selling a journal equals its cost. So this is just saying,
they go back to where they explained it.
Secondly, engaging in price discrimination, i.e., selling each title to all libraries, lowers firms' profit for value C greater than some C star, where C star is determined by VM, MZ, and the U sub I. This claim is examined more formally in section 4.
Yeah, so C grow up. Is that the first place they introduced C?
No. Yes, it does. Wait, is it?
Okay, so C is the marginal cost. Oh, yeah.
Constant distribution cost.
And C star was the theory. Yeah, it does end up being the most that the library is willing to pay because it was dependent on the price.
Right.
Go back to where they define C star.
Was it down?
It
Yeah,
was
this
right
one
there.
here.
So yeah, C is the distribution cost, but it's also C star is the most the library is willing to pay, determined by the amount they spend on books, the total budget, and the utility of this journal.
Okay. Okay. Um,
So if the marginal cost is less than the cost
that they'll
that
pay.
they'll pay, then they'd rather get what they'll pay.
And price discrimination is preferred by firms. Condition 2 can be applied directly to both classes of libraries. In the price discrimination no bundling case, PD, since each journal is sold to each type of library, each set of customers can be analyzed separately. For each value of M, a unique alpha can be determined, and thus prices will differ across the two types of libraries. In the numerical example contained in the appendix, D alpha divided D alpha on DM is greater than 0, and so prices are higher for larger budget libraries. This is price elasticity.
Hmm.
Uh, for firm J, profits can be expressed as the product of no bundling of J is equal to the product.
Yeah, the profits of the first journal plus the profits of the second journal.
Right. Profits, yeah, that makes sense. Where the product of IJ of no bundling PD is equal to P
The price they sell for the price they sell the given journal to the small libraries
minus the cost.
times the number of small libraries
Right.
plus the price they charge to libraries minus the same production cost times the number of large libraries minus the fixed cost.
Right. P the price they charge the small ones is equal to alpha small star times the utility of IJ, and alpha small star is defined by 2 when M is equal to MS and U is equal to U11 plus U21 plus U12 plus U22. So the complete total utility. And P, the price of the large that they charge to the large libraries is defined similarly, but note that unlike the print regime case, M equals ML. In the price discrimination bundling case B, the same approach to price determination can be adopted. Because each firm sells a single product, products for firm J can be expressed more compactly as the price for bundling. This is the bundling one, this is the no bundling one, is equal to the price of small minus 2C times the number of small plus the price of the large minus 2C times the number of large minus 2F.
It's the same thing as equation 5, but the 2 is because it represents two journals now.
Gotcha.
Two journals by one publisher.
Yeah.
So you're just looking at, and I mean, it's the same thing, really. You're looking at profit of firm J, case PD is profit of journal 1 plus profit of journal 2. They define that in the paragraph above 5.
Yeah.
It's the same equation there, but now they're defining it in terms of the bundle, which is just saying it's the same price of the the bundle price to large libraries and the bundle price to large libraries.
Yeah.
And then 2 production costs for each. Like one, it's the same production cost, one C marginal cost for each journal, and then one F for each of the two journals. For all the variables they have in here, you could have probably made that a variable. I thought they had a variable defined for the number of journals, but it's a lot of massive
Yeah.
letters.
Yeah, I mean, like, if we start reading economics papers, I'm sure this stuff will make a lot of sense, but
It's not that hard, it's just a lot, you got to follow it in detail.
it's, yes, and unfamiliarity with
Yeah.
economics terms.
Yeah.
Where the price of small is that, I don't think anything as here is that much different. Uh, price small j is alpha small star times uj. Uj is equal to u11 plus u21, and alpha small star is defined by 2 when m is equal to ms, and u equals u1 plus u2.
That is the one thing I kind of glossed over is that the linear algebra solution with alpha.
Yeah, so this is just price elasticity, right? From this section here.
Yeah. I remember what that does, but I don't remember how.
I don't remember either. So let's Claude it. What? Formula appears to be an equilibrium condition or optimally conditioned in an economic model. Um, alpha is a parameter. V prime denotes the first derivative of function V. M is likely a budget or monetary value. U is likely utility value. The meaning of this equation depends on the context. Okay. Left side, 1 divided by alpha represents the inverse parameter A. The right side, V prime M minus alpha U is the marginal value or marginal utility of the expression M minus alpha U. M minus alpha U likely represents some kind of residual budget of value after accounting for utility. The equation sets these two expressions equal, suggesting that in equilibrium or optimal condition. In economic terms, this equation could be interpreted as the marginal value of the residual budget after accounting for utility should be equal to the inverse parameter A. This type of condition often appears in optimization problems where it represents the point at which no further improvements can be made by adjusting the variables. Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean that much I got. I just don't remember the calculus.
I think we should try to keep on going and then maybe come back to this.
Yeah. No, I yeah.
Yeah.
Could still follow along. It's about determining where the optimal prices are.
Yeah. However, it is easy to show for various model specifications. Have we covered this part yet?
I think so.
Yes.
Because that was the three
This one.
Yeah.
However, right. Note that the profit of each firm is the same under both schemes, since P J small equals P small 1J plus P2 small, and P
Okay.
so the
Yeah.
profit of large is equal to the first
That
distribution
makes
plus the
sense.
second distribution. However, this claim relies on the assumption of no entry. As I demonstrate below, lower distribution costs, i.e. lower marginal costs, improve the relative attractiveness of price discrimination, but also makes entry more likely. Firms that bundle are better able to mitigate this threat to profits. To see this, suppose that titles are not bundled and that the aggregate quality of the set of entrants exceeds that of one of the incumbent titles, i.e., U1J plus U2J is greater than the sum of 1 to n of UE greater than or equal to UIJ. So this is saying titles are not bundled and the aggregate quality of the set of entrants exceeds that of one of the incumbents titles. So This is saying that this here,
Okay, yeah, I get it. So the utility of for publisher J, J means a publisher.
yeah,
For the utility of J's journal 1 plus journal 2, that is more than the utility of, I guess, all entrants
yeah,
and is greater than the utility of one specific journal. So
yeah.
the utility of the two journals together, the bundle, is more than the entrance, which is in turn more than a single journal. That's what they're saying.
Okay. Furthermore, assume that entry is not profitable unless one of the incumbent titles is displaced. This assumption simplifies the analysis. If entry is otherwise profitable for some of the firms in this set, then bundling does not always increase profits. If entry is otherwise profitable for some of the firms in this set, then bundling does not always increase profits. Assuming libraries are aware of this latter fact and that entrant titles set competitive prices, entry will be successful at a low value incumbent title will exit.
I mean, that seems like a big assumption.
Assuming libraries are aware of this latter fact
The
that
one above.
entrant titles set competitive prices, entry will be successful at and low value incumbent title will exit. What does this sentence mean?
I was talking about the one before. Actually, I guess it's not. I mean, I don't, I don't know how often do journals pop up, but to say that all entrant journals together versus one incumbent journal. Uh, oh yeah, no, it's okay. So the assumption in brackets there is that libraries will not buy a new journal unless they cancel an old one.
Gotcha.
That seems like a big assumption in my mind, but maybe it's not.
Well, I guess that's why, yeah, okay. Well, if they've got a fixed budget though, like they're not going to spend more on a new one because they need to,
Yeah, but even fixed budgets is kind of on a micro scale a big assumption too.
but that's the assumption of the model, right? So we're just working on that.
Yeah,
Right. You're saying like that
about
assumption
about the
to
practicality of the
yeah, yeah,
model.
yeah, gotcha. That makes sense. Um As a consequence, each library enjoys a higher level of utility. Increasing U always raises utility if price satisfies two. However, if each firm bundles its titles, then displacement of bundle lowers utility since the entrant set is less valuable than either of its available bundles.
Yeah, that's the inequality in the paragraph.
Yeah. So this is saying you need to be on this, you need this your bundle needs to be better than the
And
incumbent.
all not entrants.
All entrants. Yeah.
UV is the utility of the entrant, and then 1
Yes.
through N is
Sorry.
the entrants.
Um, right. So you need to bundle it basically and use the fact that you have something to bundle and bundle it. Otherwise, this can come in and happen.
Yeah.
Um, Comparing the two regimes, do publishers prefer to price discriminate or not? All else equal, this decision is influenced by the magnitude of marginal costs. This can be seen by comparing profits for firms under two regimes. In the digital case, to simplify the analysis, I assume that the titles are bundled. If profits from each firm in the digital case exceed the corresponding profits in the print case, i.e., the profits in B is greater than or equal to profits of all plus profits large,
Yeah, so with
then
within journal J,
yes.
if the profits of bundling is greater than or equal to the profits of selling the some papers to all and some paper one to all
Yeah.
and paper or journal one to all and journal two to large.
Then using 3, 4, and 6, I can solve the critical marginal cost C star below which both firms prefer to price discriminate and bundle. Okay. C star is equal to 1 on S of this price of the small minus the price of
Journal one.
journal 1 to library 1 times
So it's all, this is all for a given, no, it doesn't matter which library. So the profits of,
pro profits.
yeah, the profits sold to the
Yes, profits.
small are the profits of paper one times the number of smalls, plus the profits from the large are the profits of paper one minus, or minus paper one minus paper two as well, because paper one and two go to the number of large libraries.
Okay.
There's some math behind this that I'm taking at face value that
Okay.
they solved using 3, 4, and 6. But that's how you get the optimal price, the price that a library is willing to pay for. That's how you solve for the price that the library is willing to pay for.
Gotcha.
Now it depends on that utility, which is hard
Yeah.
to measure.
Yeah.
But if you have a way of measuring that, then you can calculate that price.
Okay. The intuition for why lower values of C improve the relative attractiveness of the digital regime is that price discrimination increases the customer base for Journal 2. Under the print regime, it is sold only to large budget libraries. In the digital case, all libraries purchase it. If C is too large, according to 4, the marginal revenue generated by price discrimination is exceeded by the additional costs. Note that the first term inside the bracket on the right-hand side of 7 will generally be much larger than the second term of C star. Pj small minus Pij. And since I assume that VNNM is less than 0, this implies that the profits of the small minus 2 times the profits of P sub
I don't know what
1J.
that notation is that you have highlighted.
Yeah, it looks like a rendering issue.
It does,
Um,
but it clearly means something.
yeah. This latter inequality ensures that the print case is profitable for values of C in the interval P I J C star, provided that F is not too large. Okay. So if the price is between, what was P1J is the profit of selling journal 1.
Right. So I guess that was what was the variable they had for marginal cost?
Um, this one up
It was
for C.
C, wasn't it? Engaging price. Okay, go down. Uh, okay, F is the fixed cost. Keep going down. Prices. Yeah, price of IJ is determined by the linear solution. So PIJ is the price,
Yeah.
and that's keep going. Okay. Yeah. So P was the profit of it, not the price.
Yeah.
But that was the okay. So that's
Put this one here. Um,
interesting. So the the critical marginal cost, C star, which was the optimal the marginal cost that you use to determine the optimal price is a function of the profit of firm J from the small libraries minus the profit that they would have got without price discriminating, which is the price of journal 1 times the small libraries. And then the profit they get from the large libraries is the profit they would have got subtracting the 2 times the number of large libraries.
Right, because in this one you're so this is the profit from selling. This is perfect price discrimination versus this one here selling two different journals.
Yeah. And so, like they say in that paragraph, the profits that they can get grow when they can offer more of Journal 2 to smaller libraries. But they can't just, if they, and that's why they price discriminate, because the Journal 2 normally has a price that's too high for the small libraries to afford. So they're normally priced out. But if they can price discriminate, then they can bring the I guess that's the whole crux of the paper, isn't it?
Yeah,
That if you have a cheap product and an expensive product, some customers will buy both, some customers will just buy the expensive product. You can increase your profit by selling your expensive profit product at a lower price to the rest of your customers,
yeah.
as long as it's less than your marginal cost or more than your marginal cost.
Um,
Because if you're selling for less than your marginal cost, then your profits
but it's also marginal cost plus the profit that you would have lost by not doing by selling two different products.
Well, I think the premise is that on when you're selling the expensive product, its fixed costs are covered entirely by the large libraries that pay the high price. So you only have to cover the marginal costs without the fixed cost when you're selling to the small budget libraries.
Ah, yes. Yeah, yeah.
And that's why digital makes a difference, because the only thing that matters, the fixed costs don't matter, and only the marginal costs matter. And when the marginal costs on digital are almost zero, then you can afford to sell it to both, because the large ones cover the fixed costs. The marginal costs have been made smaller because you went from print to digital. So then you can afford to you still increase profits by selling it at a lower price because you can price discriminate. If you can't price discriminate, then this the whole premise goes out the window, because then you lose the revenue from
Small.
the large. You have like Yeah. So you already have the large budget libraries buying your expensive journal.
Yeah.
You can make more money, assuming cheap distribution in digital. You can make more money by then turning around and selling the things that you just sold at a high price, also sell it at a low price to the low budget libraries.
But this one here is like this critical marginal cost is saying that you're not actually you're also going to be charging less to the large libraries because that like the amount that you
But
would have
that's
charged for the large libraries here like P2J is not equal to PJ large.
I think the PJ small includes the profits of the expensive journal going to the small libraries. And you subtract out what you would have got without the price discrimination.
I am not following because it's stepping too far away from this immediate formula, I think.
So profit of firm J selling to small budget libraries.
Yeah,
That includes selling each of their two papers,
yes,
right? So P1 of J is the cheap paper. So we take that out,
right.
but PJ of small includes selling some to the large,
Well, you're only selling it to the small libraries though.
yeah.
But you're
So
selling what you would have sold to the large
you're
libraries to the
selling
small
the
libraries.
expensive one to the large libraries because you can price discriminate and sell it to them at a lower price that they'll pay for.
But wouldn't that be encapsulated in PJ large, not PJ small?
But you're selling the expensive product to the small libraries at a lower price because you can price discriminate.
But and that's the profit in the small, not the profit in the large though. The profit in
Yeah,
the small is just made up of the fact that now this profit in the small is encapsulating the expensive one,
yeah,
whereas that used to only be in the large
right.
budget libraries. That whereas
You know what I don't?
whereas P1J is only profit from journal one, and
Yeah,
this one profit from journal one, where and the ones that are now in P2J are both in PJ large and PJ small.
right.
Um,
The interesting thing though is wouldn't P large, like the large libraries are already buying both journals. So wouldn't that term just be zero?
which one?
The second term of the addition.
This one.
The whole, yeah, wouldn't that all be zero? Because the profits of the large, it is the profits of paper one and plus the profits of paper two.
Well, but you're selling, I guess that's in a different because they're across different models. Like this PJ large is the profit of selling all of them to the large firm, as opposed to before where you would have had a different profit for selling journal one at one price and journal two at a different price. But now that they're bundled up together, you only have one term, which is PJ large, because you're discriminating against the library, not the journal.
Okay, yeah, okay.
I'll go on 6 final remarks. The note models the pricing behavior of journal publishers in a portfolio demand environment. I show that a decline in distribution cost can result in an endogenous change in pricing strategies, namely a shift from non-discriminatory pricing in the print regime to price discrimination and possibly bundling in the digital regime. As is described in the appendix, this shift can improve aggregate consumer welfare since small budget libraries can afford to purchase more titles. However, in the digital environment, incumbent publishers may choose to bundle to deter entirely and thus limit the welfare gains. There are a variety of directions for future research. For example, I assume here that publishers cover their costs by collecting revenue from subscriptions in response to the opportunities offered by the internet and the entry deterring effect of bundling by major publishers. New entrants have begun to adopt an open access business model in which online um, access is free and revenues are generated by author fees and advertising. It would be useful to endogenize pricing along these several dimensions of the journal market and explore the implications for market evolution and welfare. E.g., should we expect both of the business models to coexist, or is it more likely that one will prove dominant? Which outcomes is best from the perspective of publishers and the scientific community? I think that this is interesting. We could go into the appendix, but one thing that I have to say on this is I think this is interesting because the transition of print media into the digital domain, I think, can also be mapped onto the domain of traditional SaaS companies existing, and now that language models can write code, like any company that exists can then be replaced by another company that is using all AI related things. And what should the cost of that AI company's services be in relation to the marginal cost of getting up and running, which is this formula up here. um, and um, or wherever it is, and like the services that they would be able to apply, especially because like with the explosion of SaaS products and everything, you do get like hyper specialized companies that do very
Mm,
specialized things, which then is sort of proving the case of like bundling versus not bundling, where back before the internet, Microsoft used to do all of the things, and now you
mhm,
have a different company for absolutely everything.
mm.
Yeah. Do you have any closing remarks?
It's one thing that this paper looks at is the way the libraries aggregate demand. It would be interesting to see if there's anything that ends up aggregating demand for SaaS products. And sure, like you have B2B SaaS and it aggregates the demand of the people within the business. But I'm almost thinking like something like a set app. Do you know that?
No.
Look it up online, set app. It's their whole thing is, yeah. It's like I used to use it when I had my Mac, but
Ah,
yeah, it's a whole bunch of apps that are all bundled together, which is actually pretty convenient. And these are apps that are they probably make a lot more money like this. And I don't know the the way the apps like if the apps only get billed per install or if they just get a share of all the setup revenue. I don't know how they negotiate that. Um, but yeah, the whole thing is it's not a SaaS product, but the set app is a SaaS product that then turns the revenue that once the apps are built and
yeah.
installed, it sends that revenue over to
Based on the usage or something like
the
that.
publishers. And that's what I said. I don't know if it's based on the usage or just like the total install base of set app or something, but
I mean, looking into this, and I guess going back to the paper when, especially when they called out the fact that they weren't doing like uh what was it, mixed bundling? Um, was because with a lot of I guess with a lot of SaaS products, you're not doing bundling, as in. And also, I'm not sure how this stands up because with a lot of SaaS products, there are usage costs associated to that. So that would be
yeah.
associated with buying more of the same product in this model. Whereas,
Yeah, but even for a SaaS, the use products, the use costs are usually pretty low. Like sure, there's maybe like a storage cost or a compute cost, but most of it goes into software engineering fees. And
yes,
and so it's there's no marginal cost to software engineers. You've written the code and it runs once, but there is an ongoing cost which they don't model for in the world of papers. Like once a journal is written, then it's written and they don't really revise them. They might publish updates in
yeah.
previous journals, but it's not like on a SaaS product, the product is changed and evolves over time in a way that journals don't.
Uh, but like I think in the like transition period where like we're undergoing an economic change such that um the what is it, the set cost of starting a new company or anything is similar to the set cost of starting up a new journal, is going to
Yeah.
completely, like I would suspect, negate the ongoing cost of upkeep of the existing products, because
It would be interesting to go from here to a product that needs an ongoing maintenance cost, but where the maintenance cost is not a marginal cost. It's just the fixed cost is recurring.
yes,
Like you
yes,
pay 10 engineers salary every month,
yeah,
right? Probably indefinitely, and you just build whatever you can with that engineering. But as you get more customers, that doesn't have to scale up as long as you're still solving the problem. It's just the compute and the storage and whatnot. It's a pretty small marginal cost. Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's all really interesting. I don't have much else to say on this, but yeah, let's try to get more economics papers on this side of things because this was interesting.
We do have a lot of AI papers to go through.
That's true. At some point they converge though, like
Yeah.
you know.
We'll just do the one AGI paper that solves everything.
Let's do yeah, which will definitely have economic stuff in it, don't worry.
Yeah.
It won't be published by OpenAI though, because they don't publish paper anymore. Yeah, cool. I guess that's all.
All right.